Hey everyone, my name is Liz Schumann and I am 39 years old living with cystic fibrosis. Um, I never thought that I would be 39 years old living with cystic fibrosis, almost 40. Um, and actually, I'm psyched to be 40. This is awesome getting older. Um, you hear most people talking about the drags of getting older, and I sort of feel the opposite. I remember when I turned 30, I was like, I'm 30. This is amazing. I loved turning 30, and I bet I will feel equally as excited, or if not more, when I turn 40. The thing is, when I was diagnosed, I was age 7. So here's how the story goes. So, early years, I think like after I was born, I stopped breathing one time and my mom had to take me to the hospital, and that just sort of, I guess, seemed to be a one-time deal. They called me Snooty McSam because I always had a runny nose and a little cough. And I don't know, I guess you could just always blame it on colds or allergies, whatever. So I was born in Hightstown, Hightstown, New Jersey. I moved up to Madison, Connecticut when I was about 4.5, 5 years old. And at that time, my mom had made a best friend, Susan. And so I remember we were sitting on the beach one time, and Susan had actually mentioned to my mother, I hate to say this, but I think you need to get your daughter checked out for cystic fibrosis. Ugh. Now, Susan was a nurse for patients with cystic fibrosis, kids with cystic fibrosis. In fact, she took care of Alex, the life of the child. She's a famous, probably the only person I had ever heard of having cystic fibrosis. Actually, Frank DeFord, the ESPN journalist, wrote a book about the life and death of his daughter, Alex. And so Susan, my mom's friend, had actually even worked with Alex. And her doctor, Dr. Dolan, actually ended up being my doctor. But anyways, going back. So Mrs. Adams said that to my mom. My mom immediately, I think, sort of went into a little shock because on my dad's side of the family, he had 4 cousins all pass away from CF. Now imagine this family. You had 4 kids from the same set of parents, and all 4 had CF, and all passed away. So, can't imagine what that must have been like. So, my mom and dad took me to Yale New Haven, where they got me tested, and I remember they were testing me for CF, the good old-fashioned sweat test where they put, saran wrap around your arm and see how much salt comes out. And sure enough, I was one of those kids that always loved salty foods, was always going for the chips, for the Jacks, extra salt, on saltines. I mean, if it was salty, I was eating it. So that was a classic giveaway sign. And then when we went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, he found nasal polyps in my nose. And so that's another telltale sign that a kid is either going to have nasal polyps at such a young age, either due to severe allergies or cystic fibrosis. So that was really the toss-up. We were going to go explore and find out what this was, allergies or CF. Instinctively, as a little 7-year-old girl, I knew that I had CF. Turns out I had CF and allergies. I passed both those tests. So I remember one night, I'm one of 4 siblings, so go do that genetics. And those statistics were the perfect, genetic statistic, 1 out of 4. And I remember my family had just watched a TV show, The Cosby Show, and the whole family pranked Theo, and I can't remember the exact prank, but somehow they changed the whole room and they made him pay with with certain money so they could buy his mattress back. I don't know. It was like the best like Cosby Show ever. But anyways, the family was lying to him, and pranked him. And keep in mind, my dad is a really funny guy. So the TV goes off and everyone goes to bed. And my parents say, Elizabeth, we need to talk to you. And so they sat me down and they told me I had cystic fibrosis. Of course, my immediate reaction is I always want to laugh. I'm like terrible that way. Like I want to like laugh and like when I hear bad news. But they told me, and actually it's really classic denial. I thought that they were being like the Cosby Show and that they were pranking me, that this was a joke. It was classic denial. So, I went back in my room and cried and realized what the truth was. Now, here I am, 7, turning 8, and the life expectancy at that time was 12. So they give me Alex, the Life of a Child to read. Probably not a good decision to have me read a story about like a little girl who dies at 11 years old. But that was all the literature that was available at that time. There was no internet. There was nothing written about CF. I mean, this was a disease that no one knew anything about except that it had no cure, and that the life expectancy would be very, very young, that I was not expected to live into adulthood, certainly not college. And so, I mean, here I am, still standing. Still running, in fact. So when I was little, actually felt rather okay. I was really normal. I did gymnastics. I did ballet. I was a real athlete, and I think that being an athlete was probably one of the things that saved me from as much scarring and damage on my lungs as possible. So I'm really grateful that I had all the sports and all the athletics, because I think that really did shape, how I live my life, and also just kept my lungs stronger, longer. So back in the old days, when I had to do airway treatment, it was truly my mom sitting behind me, doing the good old postural drainage, right? And if I was really sick, she would hit me really hard, or Susan, the nurse, would come over and hit me really hard, and I'd end up with giant black and blue circles all around my back. But doing PD to somebody who is sick and is all clogged up, it actually feels good because it's like moving it all out. So I did all that. That was all the way through high school. Usually underweight, really hard to gain weight, would eat whatever I wanted, very picky eater. It wasn't until college that things really started going downhill for me. Not downhill, but became more complex. Again, I didn't really know what CF was. I'd go to the clinic. By the time I was 16, my parents were having me drive myself to the clinic. So my parents were not really involved in my treatment. It was sort of just me figuring it out. And I didn't have, Facebook at the time. There were no clubs or anything. And another thing about CF people is you're not allowed to be around 6 feet around another CFer. And the reason for that is we can share bacterias in our lungs that are, the bad bacterias that may kill us. So, for example, I grow Pseudomonas, and I've been using antibiotics after the years. So now I've grown resistant to all the oral antibiotics. So whenever I have a lung, exacerbation, I have to go in the hospital and get an IV a PICC line so that I can, stay in the hospital for a while and then I can do some of the treatments at home too. But that's because the medications that used to work don't work anymore. And so I'm very grateful for all the treatment and research and the dedication to fighting for a cure, because without that I wouldn't have all the medications that I take every day. I think all the time about my 4 cousins. I have their picture. Hold on. This is a picture of my 4 cousins who all passed away from CF. And I think about how all the treatments and medications I have, they didn't have any of this. And so I feel really grateful to have the treatments and the care that I have. So I went to college, and really I was there for 3 or 4 weeks. And I sort of did this sneaky thing where I thought I was never going to get sick, called denial. And so I sort of came up with this plan that I wasn't going to tell anyone that I had CF, because I didn't want anyone to feel bad for me. This was like my fresh start, and I want to know if people like me for me. And 3 weeks in, I got really sick, 104.9 fever, rushed to the emergency room, was hospitalized for 2-3 weeks. My friends were amazing. And eventually I told about 7 of my girlfriends, and that was really all I told all through college. It was something I really felt ashamed, felt embarrassed, felt broken, felt like a burden. So I think that having some therapy and mental health services along with your treatment at the clinic is really valuable too, just to help get over that initial denial, because I think that can also impact how compliant you are with your treatment and how compliant you are going into the doctors and letting the doctors know you. At this point, my doctors are sort of like my friends. Like, they know me, they call me out on my stuff, and they're cool. Like, I want to go have a cocktail with them. And so, let's see. Let me show you some of my treatments. All right. So obviously, one of the main forms of treatment is the vest. So I wear this vest 2 hours a day. On a good day, I wear this vest 6 hours a day if I'm in the hospital or not feeling well. And of course, I need pink, right? So this is what it looks like. So set it up. We'll start moving and shaking. So now, I didn't get my vest till I was 27 years old. And at least, so you can imagine, for people who are trying to live with CF independently, that would have meant having nurses come into your house, having to do postural change on you, would have really interfered with your life. Some things to think about with CF2 are, how are people going to live what I call healthy sick? And that can be really hard. It can be really hard to find a job that supports you being healthy sick, because a lot of CFers are going to land in the hospital, have to take time off of work, probably use up their FMLA time, and really want to work. And so if they're not working, how are they feeling like a productive part of, our community? How are they feeling good about themselves? If they're not working, if they're not anxiety, that's going to make you not want to do your treatments. Anxiety is going to cause inflammation. It's just going to be a vicious cycle and make you sicker and sicker. So, all of this being said, coming from a therapist. So I work as a therapist at Grove School in Madison, and I feel like it was a real gift to work there because they promote healthy sick. They want me healthy, and so if I have to go in the hospital, they let me go in the hospital. There's no, you have one more sick day, Liz, what are you going to do? Because I've been in agencies that have operated like that too. And that's very, very stressful. As a person with CF, you have to manage your stress. So trying to find a work environment that works for you is really important. Now, not every CFer is going to make it to college or going to make it out in the career place. Some are much, much sicker than I am. And so we still have to fight for that cure. There are many CF patients who are fighting to breathe today. And when I turned 30, I always thought it was my mission to fight for those who are just fighting to breathe today, especially the little CFers. They deserve to grow up and have a life like me and manage their healthy sick. One of the ways I managed my healthy sick was by having an amazing amount of friends, an amazing network of people. Oh my God. I always say it takes a village to raise a Liz. It really has. The other thing that has really saved me is running. I started running half marathons when I was about 26, 27. I was at the beach with a friend and I said, hey, I'm gonna go run a half marathon. And they said, no, you're not. Because I was actually pretty sick that day. They're like, no, you're not. And I said, yeah, I am. And they said, well, if you are, then I will too. So years later, I'm still running half marathons, even trained for a full marathon. Imagine 2 hours a day of this. But it actually really helps you cough. Running really helps get up all the mucus too. But my doctor said, this was a lesson I learned the hard way, that when you get older, the mucus and the bacteria, they settle into the lower linings of the cilia, and so just running alone won't be enough airway clearance. Doing the Minnesota protocol on your vest, that actually is formed, that's a technique to especially get these areas here. And so really it's a combination of running and the vest and any other aerobicas, or, there are a lot of different airway clearance techniques out there. When I was in college, I also developed severe chronic pancreatitis, like where you're doubled over, throwing up. It's like a knife is going through. It's the equivalent of pain as someone going through labor. I had no idea what was going on, and it's horrific. So I had many years of that, and that is CF related. In the most recent years, I developed cystic fibrosis related diabetes. And my biggest problem with my CFRD is that I crash really low. Like in the middle of the night, I'll just wake up and I'll be like, oh my God, it's so high in here. Like it's almost like you're drunk and you can't even talk sometimes. It's like you're brain dead. And so I have several times been under 30. And just like that, it's a constant. And now with running, it's something I really have to work on. I wear Dexcom, and that has absolutely been a lifesaver. Another big thing this year was I started using a feeding tube. So every night I hook myself up here, and it goes straight to a little button right there at a G tube, and now I have a Mickey button. Yeah. And so because I'm diabetic, I use 4 of these per night to help my nutrition up. Just because when you're with CF, it's really hard to gain weight. Like you're coughing, you don't want to eat, you cough so hard, you throw up. It's just hard to get those calories. And so having the feeding tube has certainly made it a lot easier. So man, I could talk all night about CF and raise some CF awareness. But one thing I do really hope that you guys get to see too is called outrun38.org. Almost 2 years ago now, when I was in the hospital, my friend started a Facebook group called 38 called Outrun the Odds, also called Outrun 38, and the plan was to run 3,800 miles by my 38th birthday collectively. And because that year 38 was in fact the life expectancy, now it is closer to 40. So I always say I'm riding the wave. um, but anyways, day 1 we had 1,000 followers. Day 9 we actually completed the goal of 3,800 miles. Day 10, the Today Show called us. So I would love for you guys to see our clip from the Today Show too. Anyways, thank you for all your interest and spreading the word and talking about cystic fibrosis. And thank you for helping all of us be our best healthy sick. All right. Thanks. Bye.